Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, and I'll be conducting our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. We appreciate you joining us this evening, capping off what has been an exceedingly busy week on the launch front. Still a little bit more to come before we go ahead and call it quits, though. For those keeping score at home, of course, we had launch from this very pad back on Tuesday evening, another Starlink mission, Starlink 8-7, that was followed up by a couple of marquee launches. Boeing Starliner spacecraft lifting off atop an Atlas V rocket on its third attempt, sending NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams up to the International Space Station, where they safely docked to the ISS on Wednesday afternoon. That was following just a couple of hours after a very exciting and exceedingly successful, by all accounts, fourth test flight of SpaceX's nearly 400-foot tall Starship rocket. Now, of course, back with you one more time before the work week officially taps out. Back here at good old Pad 40 with another launch of SpaceX's workhorse rocket, the Falcon 9, sending up the main payload for SpaceX these days, another batch of Starlink satellites. You're looking live at that Falcon 9, standing tall at Slick 40. SpaceX is targeting a T0 liftoff of this rocket at 8 o'clock on the dot. That is quad 0 UTC for our friends joining from around the world. Certainly appreciate all of you who are joining with us at the start of our broadcast, more than 1,700 of you. For those who have been with us throughout the week, very much appreciate it. If you're just tuning in for the first time today or perhaps ever, very glad to have you with us on this Friday night. I know you have your options when it comes to live launch coverage, and we're very glad and appreciative that you're choosing to tune in with us here at Spaceflight Now. Being that it is at the tail end of a very busy launch week, we've got our crews scattered just a little bit, but of course we're going to bring you robust live coverage as we always do. Our photographers Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane, making their way back from Starbase in South Texas as we speak. So our Spaceflight Now editor Stephen Young and I are holding down the fort here in Florida. Going to be providing tracking views for you, making sure things run as smoothly as possible on the tech end. But would ask on the front end of this that you give us a little grace if there are some slight hiccups. We are doing our level best as our stalwart photographers make their way back to the Sunshine State. The mission on tap here is Starlink Group 10-1. You heard that right, 10-1, the first batch of Starlink satellites heading up to this particular shell of the Starlink constellation. More than 6,500 Starlinks have been launched to date. Currently, a little more than 6,100 that are currently up in orbit and working. That's according to expert orbital tracker and professional astronomer Jonathan McDowell. On tap tonight, this will be SpaceX's 42nd dedicated Starlink satellite launch in 2024, the 105th so far that has sent up the V2 mini satellites. The smaller version of the satellites that will be launched eventually by SpaceX's Starship rocket. Of course, still very much in development, but we happened to catch our coverage yesterday. You saw that they made quite a bit of progress with the mission, up to and including a soft water landing of the Super Heavy booster, as well as the re-entry of the ship upper stage and some stellar views all the way through on the way down before it also made a soft water landing, able to make the flip maneuver, splash down in the Indian Ocean. SpaceX founder Elon Musk says they very well may try to return the booster to the to the launch site on the 5th flight, which would be quite extraordinary. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Spaceflight now, as you can bet your bottom dollar that we'll be back down at Starbase for live launch coverage on that mission whenever SpaceX is ready to do so. Speaking of being ready, we certainly wouldn't be ready for live launch coverage were it not for our wonderful moderators here on YouTube. So thanks to Astro Jen, Stephanie B, Callistia Lee, Astro Joe, and I think Rusty Shackelford is hanging out over on Launchpad Live. We certainly appreciate all you do to keep things kosher in the live chat. You're a key part of this wonderful community we have, and we very much thank you for all you do during our launches. We're also powered by a wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like James Wilson, Jamie Satchel, aka JJ, Chuck Powers, Cortland Beal, Steve Brock, Pasmaria H, Margaret Davis, and many others. John Medley, good evening to you. Expedition Greg, Ralph Kilcup. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, shop.spaceflightnow.com, where you can find things like embroidered mission patches for the recently launched Starliner crew flight test, the upcoming SpaceX Crew 9 mission set to launch in August. You can also get 4K views of all the liftoff moments from here at the Cape in 4K, as well as access to member-only videos here on YouTube. And in looking at some of our recent numbers, probably from some of our launch coverage this week, we have crossed 1,000 channel members. So it is wonderful that we are 1,000 strong, and look forward to keep growing our community with generosity as such that we're seeing from folks like moderator Astro Joe gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Really appreciate that, Astro Joe. And to our newest channel member, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Astro Joe in the comments section if you haven't already. Last but not least, if you'd like to support what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and you have a comment or question that you'd like to have read on the show, and your comment or question is appropriate to be read on the show, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. And not only will we be supporting this live launch coverage and our on-the-ground reporting like we just wrapped up down at Starbase, which will also give us some interesting things to talk about as we continue on through the count. We are currently T-minus 48 minutes, 20 seconds and counting, speaking of that count, to the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. SpaceX currently runs its countdowns from its Hangar X site here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It's the facility where they refurbish Falcon boosters and prepare them for future flights. This is the case with the booster you see here on your screen. We'll talk a little bit more about the history of B-1069 in just a little bit. You're T-minus 47 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. I want to thank another one of our wonderful moderators and channel members, Callistia Lee, for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Callistia. And to our 10 newest members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. And if you haven't already, be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat, and hope you stick around with us here at Spaceflight Now. As we are proceeding through the count, want to go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline, what we're anticipating as SpaceX steps through the fueling process, assuming they are in a good position to do so. Fueling starts as it always does with the Falcon 9 rocket at T-minus 38 minutes. That's the point at which the SpaceX launch director will go ahead and make the call on the start of propellant load. If they are in fact in a good position to do so, then fueling starts at the T-minus 35 minute mark. Two events happening simultaneously. RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, is loaded onto the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. At the same time, liquid oxygen is loaded on board the Falcon 9 first stage. T-minus 16 minutes, second stage liquid oxygen load begins. But before that happens, we'll see the so-called big vent as the feed lines are chilled prior to that second stage LOX loading. Big vent comes about at around T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. T-minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 first stage get underway. That involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbopumps, and helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see that strong back retract sequence get underway. It starts with the clamp arms underneath the Falcon 9 payload fairings opening up, and then it will recline about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. It stays in that position until liftoff, at which point it pulls back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. About 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Then T-minus 2 minutes, the second stage LOX tank wraps up filling, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for liftoff at 45 seconds out. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds. Of course, if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite, the flight computer will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 for a T0 liftoff. And folks, we do have a new T0 time to report. SpaceX is shifting the launch now to a T0 liftoff of 8:28 p.m. Eastern. 8:28 p.m. Eastern, that is 0028 UTC for our friends joining around the world. Bear with us as we adjust our T0 clock, and we'll be right back with commentary. As you see with our countdown clock, we are now with the new T0 time at T-minus 1 hour, 11 minutes on the dot. Or rather, T-minus 1 hour, 10 minutes, 46 seconds and counting. The important thing to keep in mind here with SpaceX and its Falcon 9 rocket is their fueling process, known as a load and go, means that as soon as they've started fueling, they commit to a T0 time and an attempt. So they do have multiple backup opportunities within this window that lasts until 10:10 p.m. Eastern. They're opting for that first backup opportunity here in the window. Again, the new T0 is 8:28 p.m. Eastern, 0028 UTC. You're currently T-minus 1 hour, 5 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. If you're just joining us with our live launch coverage, expected to be a little bit further into the count. SpaceX has adjusted the T0 liftoff time of the Falcon 9 rocket for the Starlink 10-1 mission. Again, they are looking at a liftoff at 8:28 p.m. Eastern, 00:28 UTC. They do have backup availability within this window that lasts until 10:10 p.m. Eastern. That is, as long as they have not started fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket. Been watching a few showers cruise on by the Space Coast over the course of the afternoon. Weather coming in tonight, not quite as nice as it's been in the last few days. Taking a look at this wide shot here from just outside of our office here at the press site. You can see some clouds hanging around the pad area and just over our location here at KSC. 45th Weather Squadron forecast a 60% chance of favorable weather for liftoff, tracking primary concerns of the anvil clouds, the cumulus clouds, and the surface electric fields rule. Essentially, one of the things that they're most concerned about, broadly speaking, especially when there are thick or anvil clouds in the area, is the possibility of a rocket generating its own lightning, basically creating a static charge as it climbs through a cloud. So that's why if there's going to be something like an anvil cloud or a thick cloud layers rule coming into play, that may be a thorn in the side of a launch opportunity. So we'll keep a close eye on that. If SpaceX needs to pivot to their backup window tomorrow, that opens up at 7:47 p.m. Eastern, and the 45th Weather Squadron is looking at a slightly better weather outlook, 80% favorable tomorrow with just the cumulus cloud rule in play. So significantly, or I should say notably better tomorrow. Still better than a coin toss tonight, but quite a bit more cloud activity to be potentially concerned with, or at least to keep an eye on. As we continue on, I want to thank SL Riggs for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, SL, for your support this evening. As this is a launch to a brand new shell for the Starlink constellation, we'll go ahead and talk about the trajectory a couple of times today, since it's new from the perspective of what we've been seeing for quite some time, missions heading in a southeasterly trajectory to the 6th shell. This will be somewhat reminiscent of the last Starlink 8-5 mission that we had. It's taken a Google Earth satellite view look at Pad 40 here, Space Launch Complex 40, here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Once it leaves that pad, the Falcon 9 is going to be heading in a northeasterly trajectory, so scooting up the coast of the eastern part of the United States. So if you've got family or friends in the Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina area, tell them to keep an eye out and let us know in the comments section or in the live chat right now if you're in the Carolinas or if you're in Georgia or northern Florida. And then check back in with us again once the launch happens. Love to know what your views are like tonight. Following stage separation, the Falcon 9 first stage B-1069 is going to be landing on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas. This will be the 16th flight of this particular first stage booster. A little bit further downrange, one of the recovery vessels from SpaceX will also be on hand to scoop up the payload fairings. An important part of SpaceX's business model, pushing reusability. So the payload fairings gently float down to the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, supported by parachutes. SpaceX estimates it saves about $6 million per recovery effort. So again, an important part of their business model and bringing down the cost of launch. This is an image from a recovery effort last year. Very picturesque recovery, bringing one of those payload fairings back on board, and you can see the second payload fairing half already on board this vessel. SpaceX looking to expand its Starlink satellite coverage on the ground, of course. Taking a look at the coverage map as it currently exists. The light blue areas, countries, territories, the like, are where Starlink internet service is currently available. The darker blue shaded are places where coverage has an estimated start date or it's planned to come to there, and the dark gray is where Starlink is not available and there are no current plans. Currently T-minus 59 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. Taking a look at some facts about Starlink V2 minis. This is what they look like stacked up in their launch configuration. There are 22 V2 minis on board this particular flight. This will be the 42nd time this year that SpaceX has launched a dedicated mission to send up these Starlink satellites. They clock in at about 1,760 pounds, or about 800 kilograms. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet, or 30 meters. They use argon hull thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. They were built in Redmond, Washington, and once on orbit, they'll be deployed at about 174 miles, or 279 kilometers in altitude, at a 53.16 degree inclination for this 10th shell. We're currently T minus 51 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. SpaceX currently tracking towards a T0 liftoff tonight at 8:28 p.m. 0028 UTC. I want to thank a couple folks for your support this evening as we continue on through the count. Our thanks to Rocket Profit. Good to see you again. One of our wonderful channel members with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Rocket Profit. And sending in that tip for a near perfect IFT4. Really appreciate that. And thanks as well to one of our other wonderful channel members, Bob Witter, with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Bob. Good to see you this evening as well. Bob says, proud to be a Spaceflight Now member and grateful for all the amazing crew that make it happen. Thank you. Well, it certainly takes a village, and we're very appreciative of the wonderful folks that we get to work with on our live launch coverage and on-the-ground reporting as well. So thank you for recognizing that. And yes, both the Atlas V and the Starship launches this week were quite spectacular. Always lovely to see a daytime Atlas take to the skies. Now, Butch and Sunny are safely docked to the International Space Station. They will be going through a number of checkouts while docked to station before they return to Earth. Before they launched, they were tracking a no earlier return of about June 14th. However, as NASA and Boeing mission managers have stated, they want to make sure they get through all the milestones on that flight that they have on their list. So they're perfectly fine with staying aboard station for a little bit extra time if it does take more time to do that. And I'm sure Butch and Sunny wouldn't mind, given the amount of time it's taken for them to make it up to the orbiting outpost. Having a little extra time on station wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I'm sure. We're currently T-minus 45 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. At this point, SpaceX is about 7 minutes away as they're targeting a T0 liftoff of 8:28, about 7 minutes away from the launch director making a call on the start of propellant load, if they are in fact ready to do so. So we will keep a close eye on that for updates from SpaceX, as well as signs of fueling once that has gotten underway. Assuming we make it past that point and SpaceX doesn't update the T0 again in the interim. Again, as we're tracking towards liftoff, just a little before 8:30 tonight on the East Coast, the 45th Weather Squadron was keeping a close eye on some of the cloud outlook. Forecast a 60% chance of favorable weather tonight. Taking a look at the live radar view here. This is the satellite view, excuse me. 45th Weather Squadron was tracking possibility for anvil clouds, cumulus clouds, and the surface electric fields rule as possible constraint to launch. So this funnel that you're seeing right here is tracking sort of the trajectory of possible anvil cloud activity. So that is something they're closely watching tonight. Again, SpaceX does have multiple backup opportunities within this launch window that lasts until 10:10. So as we're watching the clouds, we're also keeping an eye on some of the stronger storm cells that are tracking to the north and south of us here at the Cape. Now, a strong thunderstorm doesn't need to be falling right on top of us in order for it to affect a launch. It just has to be within a certain radius of the launch pad. For those who have lived in the Midwest or the South, areas that are prone to severe thunderstorm activities, you know that you don't have to be right underneath a strong thunderstorm for lightning to strike fairly far out. So as the chief meteorologist for my former employer would say, when thunder roars, get indoors. A familiar weather adage, but certainly a tried and true one, and one that can very well save your life, save the outlook of a mission. Here's another live look outside of our office here at the Kennedy Space Center press site. This is a view looking in the southeasterly direction, broadly speaking. Again, you can see some of those clouds hanging around. Most of the activity is moving from west to east from where we're sitting. The majority of it is to the north and south of us, but again, we're also watching its proximity to the pad, as that, again, could be a potential limiter to the mission, even if we are not running and ducking and protecting our cameras from some rain activity. Could potentially, and I'll throw that with an underline, potentially be an impact to launch. But the 45th Weather Squadron weather outlook was 60% favorable conditions for liftoff, so better than a coin toss, but not by a huge margin. So we'll continue to track that as we step on through the count. Currently T-minus 40 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. Just a couple minutes away from SpaceX making the call on the start of prop load. And in fact, that time has shifted once again. We are looking, as I check, SpaceX now targeting 9:02 p.m. Eastern. 9:02 p.m. Eastern, folks, for the launch of the Starlink 10-1 mission. That window still extends out to 10:10 p.m. Eastern, so they do have some wiggle room in this window. some margin left to fill. So as you see, our T0 clock now standing at T minus 1 hour, 14 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Unclear if this is directly connected to the weather. Don't quite have enough information to make that call, but certainly weather is something that SpaceX and every launch provider is tracking at all times. But as long as they have not started fueling, they will still have margin for launch, lasting until, again, 10:10 p.m. tonight. Current T0, 9:02 p.m. Eastern. That is 01:02 UTC for our friends joining around the world. As we are continuing to track the progress of the Falcon 9 rocket towards a liftoff now at 9:02 p.m. Eastern. Happy to bring you some of the beautiful sights of cloud activity as it curves around the Space Coast. If you take a look at that big old cloud to the left of the Vehicle Assembly Building, or the VAB, just beneath that where you see the orange of a setting sun, you can see a little bit of rain activity in that pocket of Brevard County. Again, as we're looking at the radar, it still appears that the weather activity is tracking west and east of us again, but also to so the cell that you're looking at in this live picture, that is scooting to the north. That's around the Scottsmore, Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach area, for those familiar with the Volusia County part of Florida, just our neighbor to the north county-wise. But we are looking at a nasty bit of thunderstorm activity that is sitting on top of Rockledge, coming into Vieira right now, that is tracking in a northeasterly trajectory. It's going to fall a little bit to the south of us here at the press site, but it is scooting right over Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So fingers crossed here that it will avoid us and our cameras, but that is something certainly that SpaceX will be watching for, and more than likely a reason why, or a strong contributing factor as to why the launch time has pushed off to 9:02 p.m. So we'll continue to track the timing of that storm. Again, I will throw in the caveat that we are not certified meteorologists here, and we are doing our, and I'll apologize for the pun, but we're doing our level best to weather this weather. And we will bring you updates as we learn them. Currently T-minus 1 hour, 2 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. Taking a look at the live chat. Looking at some of the folks who are here with us on the Space Coast. Just want to see what the weather's like from some local vantage points. Mighty Horsey checking in from Cocoa Beach. Says seeing gray skies and some thunder. Well, Mighty Horsey, if you're hearing some thunder and you're at Cocoa Beach, hopefully you're just in the city of Cocoa Beach and not actually on the beach itself. May not be the safest to be outdoors if you're hearing thunder, especially with the storm trending in that direction. One of our wonderful channel members, Janet Smith, saying lots of thunder down in Melbourne, Florida. Looking for some other local comments. Hello, Carlos Andre checking in from Brazil, which is very cool. Let us know where you're watching from tonight. Looks like Rodrigo Capello is also joining us from Sao Paulo, Brazil, which is excellent. It's always wonderful to know that we have a lot of great international friends joining us from around the world. And as we're closing into an hour of the current T0 time of 9:02 p.m. Eastern, I want to thank two of our channel members, Nelson Reyes and Rick Donner, for each gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that from the two of you. And to our newest 10 channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Nelson and Rick in the live chat. We hope you stick around. Also want to welcome Hunter Short Repairs for joining us with the channel membership at the PAL leader level. Glad to have you with us, Hunter Short. And a big thank you to Casey Salter for a very generous $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Casey, for supporting us at that level. That is very kind of you. Casey is watching over the lake in Melrose, Florida. Melrose looks like up a little closer to the Gainesville area of Florida. Certainly northern. So if the launch does go off tonight, Casey will have to let us know what the vantage point is like from your neck of the woods. Thanks as well to Wumpy for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Wumpy, saying, how's it going? Having a good day, good dinner? Thanks for all the streams. It has been a very busy stream week. Dinner will wait till the other side of this launch, so hopefully we can get through it without too much further delay. Done. We are currently T minus 55 minutes, 40 seconds and counting as it stands with a T0 liftoff time of 9:02 p.m. Eastern, 01:02 UTC. If all is successful with this mission, or certainly once it lifts off, this will be SpaceX's 344th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date. This will also mark the 191st Falcon 9 to fly from Pad 40 for SpaceX, the 246th mission to launch from here in total. This was the 44th launch from Florida's Space Coast so far this year. Been a busy year out here. Certainly a busy time for SpaceX. As we mentioned during our Starship coverage yesterday, if you would like to lend your voice to the conversation about Starship and its expansion here in the Sunshine State, coming up next week on the 12th and the 13th for those who are here locally, and I believe on the 17th virtually, the Federal Aviation Administration is hosting a series of public scoping meetings, essentially discussions where if you're watching in person or if you're here in person, they'll have a series of sandwich boards and folks from the FAA to talk about SpaceX's plans to bring Starship launches to Pad 39A, aiming for about 44 launches per year once that Starship tower is operational. We're currently at T-minus 49 minutes, 34 seconds and counting, as it stands with a 9:02 p.m. Eastern liftoff time of the Falcon 9 rocket. Certainly appreciate the 5,500 of you that are watching with us live. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button. Allow some more folks to find their way into our live launch coverage as we continue on, and hopefully the weather will start cooperating a little bit more as we're losing daylight and getting on into the latter part of the launch window today. But of course, yesterday was a big day for SpaceX, being able to bring their super heavy booster down for a soft water landing. And of course, the views that we saw here, taking a look at a time-lapse video covering the re-entry of the ship upper stage. It was quite the cinematic saga. As SpaceX noted during its commentary, these continuous streams were brought by satellite service that's being prepared to launch, hopefully in about 42.5 minutes. SpaceX commentator Dan Hote noted that while they had these two views that you're seeing here on your screen right now, they're working for future flights to be able to have more views on Starship. Again, working continuously to bring these views throughout the course of the mission from liftoff through landing. For the first time, the ship upper stage was able to make it through peak heating, even though SpaceX intentionally had two tiles missing and sensors in place to determine just exactly how much heat the heat shield took as it went through this point of re-entry. Again, you're watching a time lapse, of course, of the mission. This is sped up about 10 times real-time rate. But despite what you're seeing here, that forward fin taking a punishing amount of heat and blistering apart there. At one point, I think coming up right about now, yep, you see the camera lens appear to crack. But sure enough, the Starlink connection continued to hold, and some of that soot was able to peel away just enough so you could still see the forward flap. And if you look at the position of the the Starship upper stage, you can see its orientation, and right at the very end, it does reposition itself, and SpaceX says they were able to conduct a soft water landing out of the Indian Ocean. Let that roll one more time. SpaceX also says they plan to attempt a catch of the Super Heavy booster potentially with the 5th flight of Starship, to be determined exactly when that will be. But coming into the mission, they also filed a few contingency plans with the FAA. And so given that there was a soft water landing of both the Super Heavy booster and the ship upper stage, this very well could have fallen into the category where a full mishap investigation would not be necessary before they go ahead and get to Flight 5. So depending on how much SpaceX is going to iterate between the launch that you're seeing here on this replay and the next mission, could be coming up within maybe just a couple of months. We'll have to wait and see. We are currently at T-minus 42 minutes, 37 seconds and counting. Once again, we are now just about 2 minutes away from the point at which the SpaceX launch director needs to make the call on the start of propellant load if they feel that they and the weather are in a good position to do so. As we have been, we will continue to keep you updated on the start of fueling tonight. Taking a look back at our camera pointed towards the vehicle assembly building to the northwest of us here. Very pretty sunset if you're just looking at it from an aesthetic view, but of course those clouds are trending in our direction, which is not ideal when you're talking about the prospect of a launch in as little as 41 minutes and some change. We are keeping a close eye on SpaceX to see if they once again adjust that T0 time. But for now, it continues to remain at 9:02, and we'll let you know if there are any adjustments. In the meantime, I want to thank channel member Rick Donner for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Rick. Running thread if you've been with us for some of these recent launches. Rick saying, I finally heard your brother. He does the voice of Bishop and King T'Chaka. A reference to my brother, the voice actor, Isaac Robinson Smith, who, yes, is the voice of the X-Men from the future Bishop on the recently released X-Men 97 series. I'll go ahead and give him a quick shout now. If you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, he's going to be on at least one panel with some of the other X-Men 97 voice casts. So if you'd like to catch them, a blend of the original cast from the 90s series and some of the new folks, go on, stop by and say hello. Schedule permitting, I may or may not make an appearance down there myself. So that is very much TBD. I'll say my brother definitely will be there, for those who care about such things. Also want to thank channel member Rocket Prophet for being a member with us for 17 months. That is awesome, Rocket Prophet. They say, Spaceflight Now commentators rock. Well, thank you so much for that kind vote of support. Take a look back at the Falcon 9 rocket sitting at pad 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Also want to welcome a couple new channel members here. Zeus's mommy joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. I'm assuming Zeus is the adorable canine who's in your profile picture. And Zeb Akuf also joining us at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard to the two of you. We're glad to have you with us. And if you haven't already, flying on autopilot here. We're currently T-minus 39 minutes and counting, 1 minute away if SpaceX is ready to take that poll for the start of fueling. As I speak these words, SpaceX is still targeting. Well, let me interrupt my thought to bring a new item to us. SpaceX is now targeting 9:32 p.m. 9:32, folks, for the launch of this mission. Once again, another shuffle, likely not with certainty, but very likely due to the weather that we're seeing in and around the area of the pads. Again, looking back at the VAB view here, you can see those clouds marching steadily toward us. Not the sort of thing you like to see when a launch was going to be just about 38 minutes away, but as you can see with our new T0 time, we are now T-minus 1 hour, 8 minutes and counting from the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. SpaceX does still have backup opportunities that last until 10:10 p.m. Eastern tonight. So as long as they have not started fueling, they do have additional chances to launch this Falcon 9 rocket. We are currently T-minus 46 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. Some positive news on the weather front. The weather is starting to trend a little bit better than we've seen it in the last half hour or so. Certainly an encouraging sign. SpaceX continues to track towards a T0 liftoff at 9:32 p.m. Eastern. So we are now just about 7 minutes once again away from the point at which SpaceX launch director needs to make a call on the start of propellant load tonight. Assuming that they are ready to do so and they feel like the weather is cooperating enough. Fueling will begin at T-minus 35 minutes, about 10 minutes from now. It'll start with 2 events simultaneously. The loading of RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, on the Falcon 9's first and second stages, as well as liquid oxygen on the first stage of the Falcon 9. We are just a little bit past sunset here on the eastern coast. So assuming that the launch does move forward in the next 45 minutes, should be pretty visually lovely launch, assuming we don't get obscured by too many clouds out here. Might even see a bit of a jellyfish effect. Keep our eyes out for that. currently T-minus 38 minutes, 46 seconds and counting. A little less than a minute away from the point in which the SpaceX launch director needs to make the call on the start of prop load, assuming they are still tracking a 9:32 p.m. Eastern liftoff for the Falcon 9 rocket. The last couple of times they shifted things on us, they had already adjusted the T0 time by the time we were this close to the decision point. So there's a good indication that they may be ready for prop load. But of course, we will stand by for official word once that does come. We're now currently T-minus 36 minutes and counting, assuming a 9:32 p.m. liftoff, the Falcon 9 rocket. However, there's some indication, though it is actually, now, there we go. 9:56 is the new T0 time as SpaceX making that adjustment once again to push close to the end of the window. It seems they would have at least one more shuffle beyond that. So we are going to go ahead and adjust our T0 time. Now it has been adjusted here. We are now T-minus 59 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. With a new T0 time of, again, 9:56 p.m. Eastern. It is 0156 UTC for our friends joining around the world. You're currently T-minus 48 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. As you can see, things are clearing up quite a bit, looking in a northwesterly direction. So hopefully things are trending well for SpaceX to be able to launch in just under 48 minutes from now. It'll make the call and start a prop load in under 10 minutes, again at the T-minus 38-minute mark. Fueling would then begin with the loading of RP-1 on the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket at T-minus 35 minutes. At the same time, liquid oxygen will be loaded on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Of course, we'll continue to track the progress of Falcon 9 rocket and the hopeful launch of the Starlink 10-1 mission as updates continue to become available. But for a moment, we want to turn to some unfortunate and sadder news as we've gone through a week of a lot of milestones in the realm of human spaceflight. NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams were able to launch the space station successfully. Currently docked at the ISS. SpaceX launched its Starship rocket, of course, yesterday, which will eventually be used as the human landing system for the Artemis 3 and 4 missions, and likely many more moving forward. But tonight we mark the passing of one of the titans of the Apollo era. Apollo 8 astronaut Bill Anders, 90 years old, has passed away, as multiple media reports state that he was flying a T-38 plane that crashed in Washington State this afternoon. We now also have a statement within the last about 30 seconds or so from current NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, saying, and I quote, "In 1968, during Apollo 8, Bill Anders offered to humanity among the deepest gifts an astronaut can give. He traveled to the threshold of the moon and helped us all see something else, ourselves. He embodied the lessons and the purpose of exploration. We will miss him." Of course, Bill Anders, as Senator and Administrator Nelson was alluding to, the iconic Earthrise photo that sparked the imagination of so many around the world, captured in this moment by Bill Anders, one of the 3 of the Apollo 8 mission. With the unfortunate passing of Mr. Anders, that leaves now just a handful of astronauts from the Apollo era that are still with us. Buzz Aldrin, Charles Duke, Fred Hayes, Jim Lovell, Harrison Schmitt, and David Scott. Of course, this comes at a time when NASA and its international partners are charting their way back to the moon with a plan for the Apollo 2 mission to launch currently no sooner than September of 2025, with an ideal moon landing during the Artemis 3 mission in September of 2026, using the Starship rocket that we saw launch yesterday in its human landing system configuration, and using commercial spacesuits from Axiom Space. One of the benefits of NASA's Scientific Visualization Studio is that they were able to match up the audio from the Apollo 8 mission and that Earthrise moment and sync it up with a rendering of the moon in time. We want to go ahead and play that for you now as we continue to track the progress of another rocket. Take a look back at the moment that Earthrise came to us as it happened in real time.
On December 24th, 1968,
again, here is the moments leading up to Earthrise, the audio from the Apollo 8 mission synchronized with some rendering video from the NASA Scientific Visualization Studio to give a broader context on this moment, culminating in that Earthrise photo that you're seeing right now.
All right, we're going to roll. Ready? Set. The impact crater with at just prior to the subsolar point on the south side, in the floor of it, nearly even except there is one dark hole, but I couldn't get a quick enough look at it to see if it might be anything volcanic. Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, is that pretty. Hey, don't take that, it's not scheduled. You got a color film, Jim? Hand me a roll of color, quick.
Oh man, that's great. Where is it?
Quick.
Down here?
Just grab me a color. A color exterior.
There you go.
Got one?
Yeah, I'm looking for one. C368.
Anything, quick.
Here.
Got it. We missed it.
Hey, I got it right here.
Let me get up this a lot clearer.
Bill, I got it framed. It's very clear right here. Got it?
Yep. Just take several of them.
Take several of them. Here, give it to me.
Wait a minute, let me just get the right setting here. Now, just calm down, Bubble.
Oh, I got it right. Oh, that's a beautiful shot. 250 at F11. Now there's exposure.
I did. I took two up there.
You sure you got it now?
Yeah, it'll come up again, I think.
Again, that was audio marrying up with video and an expanded digital scope of the moon to show the full context of that moment leading up to that iconic Earthrise image. In the honor of that moment, two craters were renamed, one Anderson's Earthrise and the other 8 Homeward, that you see here on your screen. Both of them were visible from that iconic Earthrise shot. So thank you to Bill Anders for your contribution to the Apollo program and so much more. of course, looking back here at the vehicle assembly building, the iconic VAB with a setting moon off to the north. It was the same building where the first Saturn V to carry 3-person crew rolled out back in 1968, heading out to Launch Complex 39A. The Cape has been steadily busy in the decades since, leading us up to tonight, as SpaceX is preparing to launch Starlink 10-1 mission. Currently at T-minus 34 minutes, 54 seconds and counting. SpaceX appears to be sticking to that 9:56 p.m. Eastern liftoff time, which means fueling will be now underway on the Falcon 9 rocket. No official word from SpaceX just yet. That fueling has in fact begun. It will start with the loading of RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, on both the first and the second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket, as well as liquid oxygen on board the first stage. We're just about a minute into the fueling process getting underway. We do have word from SpaceX now in the last 30 seconds that propellant load is in fact underway and weather conditions have improved for liftoff, both encouraging signs. The fueling of the Falcon 9 officially from SpaceX is now in progress. We're T-minus 33 minutes, 13 seconds and counting away from the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. We are now T-minus 30 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting. In just a few seconds here, the SpaceX launch teams will start loading cryogenic helium into the pressure vessels on the Falcon 9's first stage. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. The same process will begin on the second stage, about T-minus 25 minutes. On board this Falcon 9 rocket are 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites, heading up to the 10th shell of the Starlink constellation. It's the first batch heading up to that particular shell. According to expert orbital tracker and astronomer Jonathan McDowell, there are currently a little more than 6,000 operational Starlink satellites in low Earth orbit. To date, more than 6,500 in total have been launched. Taking a look back at the live chat now, I want to thank the more than 8,800 of you who are joining with us live tonight. Certainly appreciate you being with us at the tail end of a very busy week in live launch coverage. We appreciate your support. Want to welcome a couple new channel members here. Welcome to Rick Moore joining us at the pad leader level. Glad to have you with us, Rick. And Rolly Nevels joining us at the mission specialist level. Glad to have you as well, Rolly. Welcome aboard. Thanks to one of our pre-existing wonderful channel members, I am Lita, the $5 super chat. Good to see you tonight, Lita. Lita says, thanks, Will, team, and the mods for making this a great place to share our love for launches, rockets, and all things space. Appreciate your support of what we do here, as well to Deba Cuff, one of our newest channel members, with another $5 super chat. Thank you, Deb. Brian Dragonfly joining us the channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, Brian. Glad to have you with us. Our thanks to Matthew Lowry for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Matthew, for supporting us at that level. And to Stryker Leggett for a very generous $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Stryker. Good to see you tonight. Thank you for supporting us on that level as well. Stryker says, greetings again from Ocean Isle Beach / Sunset Beach, North Carolina areas. Looking for a great view in the sky from our area tonight. Yes, hopefully the clouds are clear in the North Carolina area. You see a good ascent of this Falcon 9 rocket. Mel Roberts Harrell joining us as well, saying, still in Cocoa, yay. Good to get to see a Atlas V and a Falcon 9 in the same week. That is lovely. We're now T-minus 24 minutes, 54 seconds and counting. As we continue to step through the count, it's been a little while. There have been a couple of adjustments in the T0 time. So for those who may not have been with us when our live coverage began, let's go ahead and take a look at the trajectory for this mission, as it is a little bit different from the Starlink flights that we've been getting used to seeing heading to the 6th shell. This flight to the 10th shell, closer in comparison to the trajectory of the Starlink 8-5 mission that we just had earlier this week. So after the Falcon 9 rocket lifts off from Space Launch Complex 40, Slick 40, over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, it will fly in a northeasterly trajectory. So for all of those who are in the North Florida area, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, go ahead and keep your eyes to the sky, and hopefully there's not too much cloud cover in your area, and you just may be able to catch the Falcon 9 as it cruises past. Following stage separation, the Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number B1069, is going to land on the SpaceX drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. Assuming all goes well with this recovery effort, this will mark the 74th booster landing on this particular drone ship. This will also be the 317th booster landing to date. A little bit downrange from the drone ship as well, to payload fairings. The top of the Falcon 9's second stage will also be jettisoned, splashed down in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under the support of parachutes. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery effort, so it is certainly a notable part of its business model to be able to recover these payload fairings. This is what it looks like as they are being brought aboard a recovery vessel. SpaceX is in the process of certifying its first stage boosters and its payload fairings for up to 40 flights each. T-minus 22 minutes, 29 seconds and counting, and you can certainly see quite a bit of vapor starting to form here as the Falcon 9 first stage is being loaded up with that super cold densified liquid oxygen. Coming up now, just less than 2 minutes from this point, we'll see the so-called big vent. Happens as the feed lines are being chilled at the pad prior to second stage liquid oxygen loading. We are now T-minus 20 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. And as you can see, the big vent now in full swing. Again, this big vent marks the process as SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. The timing of this is also a good indication that fueling is in fact moving on schedule. So all good indications that we are continuing to be on track for a T0 liftoff coming up at 9:56 p.m. Eastern, 0156 UTC. As a reminder, because SpaceX implements a so-called load and go style of fueling into launch, the fact that they are in the process of fueling at this point means that even though the launch window technically extends to 10:10 Eastern tonight, they are committing to the 9:56 time and cannot shuffle the T0 any longer. The big vent has now wrapped up, and we're just a couple seconds away from second stage liquid oxygen load, which is kicking off right now. Less than 16 minutes to go on fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket and ahead of the launch of the Starlink 10-1 mission. Currently T-minus 13 minutes, 58 seconds and counting. As mentioned, this will be the 16th flight of this particular Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number 1069 in the SpaceX fleet. As we continue to step on through the fueling process, let's go ahead and talk about the history of this particular booster, the missions it's flown as it prepares to fly number 16. That first mission was the launch of a cargo Dragon spacecraft up to the International Space Station back on December 21st, 2021. That was Commercial Resupply Services, or CRS-24. That was followed on August 28th, 2022, with the launch of this booster's first Starlink mission, Starlink 4-23, lifting off from this pad 40, and landing on the same drone ship, a short fall of gravitas. Next up to bat came on October 15th, 2022, when it launched the Hotbird 13F satellite. It and another Eutelsat satellite would go on to replace Hotbird 8, 9, and 10 at the company's 13-degree east position. The fourth launch came on December 8th, 2022. It's the launch number 15 for OneWeb, sending up a batch of satellites for its internet constellation, which consists of more than 600 at this point Generation 1 OneWeb satellites, built right here on Florida's Space Coast at the Airbus OneWeb Satellites facility. Of course, OneWeb had to pivot away from using the Russian Soyuz rocket after Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2022. And so they contracted India and their space organization, as well as SpaceX, to launch 5 batches of the OneWeb constellation satellites on dedicated flights. This happened to be the first. Starlink 5-3 was next up to bat on February 2nd, 2023. That was followed by a launch for the Luxembourg-based company SES. SES 18 and 19 satellites launched on March 17th of last year. Then after that, it has been all Starlink all the time for this particular booster. We're talking Starlink 5-6 on May 4th, Starlink 5-12 on June 23rd, Starlink 6-9 on August 11th, 6-19 on September 30th, 6-26 on November 18th, 6-36 on December 29th. Coming into this year, 6-39 on February 25th, followed by 6-47 on April 5th. And most recently, Starlink 6-57 on May 6th of this year. We're now T-minus 10 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. Taking a look at the live chat, want to thank the more than 14,000 of you who are watching with us live. Certainly appreciate you being with us on this Friday night. We know it may be late for some of you, maybe not quite so late for others. We appreciate you being up with us for one last Starlink launch from Florida, coming up this week in just now 10 minutes. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button. Allow some more folks to find their way into this live coverage. It's a quick and easy and free way to help us out here tonight, and we very much appreciate it. I want to thank some other folks for offering their support tonight as well. Emmanuel Roker with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Emmanuel. Saying, can't wait to see launch with my wife, Lauren, dogs, Tangi and Rise. Glad you and the family could be with us tonight. Pierce Mama joins us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, Mama. Glad to have you with us. Distributor 69, one of our pre-existing channel members, with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Distributor. Really appreciate your support on that level and for your support as a channel member. And Distributor says, take care of your awesome voice, Will Robinson Smith. No smoking or anything. I live in the Antelope Valley above Los Angeles, near Lita. We all love you and love your soothing and knowledgeable voice. Well, That is very kind, and yes, I do not smoke, I do not vape, so knock on wood, all things considered, I try to do what I can to take care of my voice. Be able to bring you as thorough and authoritative launch commentary as we possibly can with each and every mission. And thank you for your support of that. Also, thanks to channel member Psychonaut69 for Spaceflight Now membership. Thank you, Psychonaut. And to our newest Spaceflight Now member, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Now T-minus 7 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. Just about 30 seconds now to the start of engine chill sequence. They'll flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, and it'll help protect those 9 Merlin 1D engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. And as we come into the final few minutes here before liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and talk about this workhorse vehicle for SpaceX. Of course, the Starship launches are fantastic to watch and very flashy. Very important, obviously, to the future of SpaceX, but for now, it continues to lean on its workhorse vehicle, the Falcon 9. It stands at 70 meters, or 229 feet tall, with a diameter of 3.66 meters, or 12 feet. Majority of that made up by the Falcon 9's first stage, the bottom 2/3 of the rocket. This particular booster, as we just reviewed, has flown 15 times before, going for flight number 16 today, tail number 1069 in the SpaceX fleet. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin 1D engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, as well as liquid oxygen, and produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs, which are used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Tonight, of course, they're using a shortfall of gravitas. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see those deployable hypersonic grid fins. These titanium winglets provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 rocket as it comes back through the atmosphere tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage, and at first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine. This is equipped with a large nozzle optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix, that being kerosene and liquid oxygen, same as the first stage. It will ignite a third time after satellite deployment to drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will help burn up and help eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the very top of the rocket are the payload fairings containing the 22 Starlink satellites today. The fairings are made up of a carbon composite material. They are 13.1 meters, or 43 feet tall, 5.2 meters, or 17.1 feet in diameter. Two halves of the payload fairings will be recovered a little downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship.
Strong blower has started.
And as you heard, fueling is now getting underway, fueling is wrapping up soon on the Falcon 9 rocket. They're preparing to pull the transporter erector or strong back. You can see the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings now opening up. We are now less than 3 minutes to lift off.
Stage 1 lock slot is complete.
As you heard that good call out from SpaceX, the first stage now fully loaded with its propellant and oxidizer. Last fueling milestone we're anticipating is right about the 2 minute mark when the second stage LOX tank should be full. As we come to the final 2 minutes of the count, really appreciate the more than 25,000 of you who are with us tonight. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button. It allows the YouTube algorithm to do its thing and brings more folks into this live coverage, as we are just minutes away. And a quick but sincere thank you to TCrow58 for a $10 super chat. Thank you, TCrow. Gargoyle2556 for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Gargoyle. Alex Florida Rican for
Stage 2 lock slot is complete.
$5 super chat. You heard that call up. Falcon 9 now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Alex saying hello, Kata and Paulina from Uncle Alex. Deneman303 with a $2 super chat. Wishing a happy birthday to Rachel Simmons from Hillard, Florida. And Lee with a $2 super chat saying, let's go. So excited. And as we are now just about a minute away.
Gas launch closeouts have started.
See those ground gas closeouts.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
We are now just 40 seconds to lift off. We're waiting for the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch, coming momentarily.
Launch director, go for launch.
We're now 30 seconds away. $20 seconds. 15 seconds. And here we go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 10-1 mission. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. events in fairly rapid succession. First, we'll see first stage main engine cutoff at T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That'll be followed 3 seconds later by stage separation. Then second stage engine start, SES-1, T plus 2 minutes and 36 seconds. That'll be followed by the fairing deployment at T plus 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Seeing some views from inside the inner stage here. See Miko. Stage separation. There's the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine.
Fairing separation confirmed.
There you see a few of the Starlink satellites on the Starlink 10-1 mission now. So far, all continuing well at this point. The Starlink 10-1 mission, the 42nd dedicated Starlink V2 mini flight in 2024 so far.
Vehicles are on nominal trajectory.
Good call out there from SpaceX. Now coming up on the 4th minute into flight, the next milestone we're looking for is the first stage entry burn to begin. It's coming up at T plus 6 minutes and 11 seconds. That burn lasting about 27 seconds in total. Now more than 5 minutes into flight. The toggling you're seeing of the two different camera views on the Falcon 9 second stage. Those are being done in order to get a view of both sides of that Merlin vacuum engine and ensure that it continues a good, even burn. Now coming up on minute 6 in real time. Just a note of the discrepancy between our countdown clock and what you see from SpaceX. Our clock is in real time. We're getting from SpaceX coming in on a slight delay. So we're now less than 10 seconds away from the start of that first stage entry burn beginning.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And we do actually have views of that entry burn from our ground camera tracking here from our very own Stephen Young. That burn ending in real time, continuing on for a few more seconds here on the SpaceX feed.
Entry burn shut down.
Both vehicles are on nominal trajectories.
Now about 7.5 minutes into flight. Coming up next will be the first stage landing burn at T plus 8 minutes and 4 seconds. This booster preparing to come in for its 16th landing to date.
Stage 1 transonic.
With that call, the Falcon 9 first stage booster traveling below the speed of sound. Now coming up on 8 minutes into flight in real time.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Good call outs here. You can see that landing burn underway. Get some views from the drone ship momentarily on the right hand side. There it goes.
Landing leg deployed. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And for a 16th time, booster 1069 back
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
safely on a drone ship.
MVAC shut down.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And a good call out of nominal orbit insertion after that second stage engine ceased its firing. The upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket will now continue on in its parking orbit and coast until T plus 43 minutes, 38 seconds. And there will be a brief 1-second burn. That will set up the 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites to deploy at T plus 52 minutes and 32 seconds. And with a good liftoff and a good landing of the Falcon 9 first stage booster, a little more than 10 minutes now into the flight, things are continuing to go very smoothly with the Starlink 10-1 mission. And as we begin to close out our coverage, I want to note that SpaceX is clocking this as their 300th Falcon 9 booster landing. We're not entirely sure their full criteria for that number, if that's just all successful landings in total, but they're marking this down as the 300th of the Falcon 9. So regardless, for Falcon boosters in total, this is the 317th booster landing by our count. However you slice it, SpaceX continues to prove the viability and the feasibility of their reusable rocket model. It continues to pay dividends for them. Before we go ahead and close out with our mission stats, I want to thank a few more folks for your support tonight. Very much appreciate it. Our thanks to one of our wonderful channel members, Lucia, for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Lucia. Emmanuel Roker back with us again with a $2 super chat. And a ghostly game over, Hippo, marking the end of our coverage. Thank you, Emmanuel. Joe Howard joining us with channel membership at the Pad Leader level. Thank you, Joe. And Astro Joe joining us as a channel member. Been with us for 23 months. One of our wonderful moderators. Astro Joe says, indeed, beautiful views as usual. And a kudos to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for stepping behind the camera, as Adam Bernstein is currently cruising through Gainesville right now, making his way back home after a very long and busy week down there at Starbase. So closing things out, we will turn now to our mission stats as they currently stand, with this first stage booster up and down, marking the 16th flight of B-1069. This is the 344th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 59th Falcon 9 launch of 2024. This was the 287th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This is SpaceX's 61st launch of 2024, including now 2 flights of their Starship rocket from down in Starbase in southern Texas. 116th in the last 365 days, the 191st orbital launch from Pad 40, and the 246th overall orbital launch from Pad 40 to date. Taking a look at the bar chart, here's where we stand right now. SpaceX just 2 missions shy from tying the total number of launches that it accomplished in all of 2022. And by the middle of next week, they very well could hit that tie, as we've got another Starlink mission looking to launch from Vandenberg as soon as tomorrow morning, Starlink 8-8, as well as another batch of Starlink satellites heading to shell number 10 from here on the Space Coast. That launch looking to lift off from the pad you're seeing there on the right-hand side of your screen, Slick 40, coming up on Tuesday evening. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 74th booster landing on the drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. This was SpaceX's 248th drone ship landing. It has just now stated the 317th overall booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 44th orbital launch from the state of Florida, the 63rd so far from U.S. soil, the 69th orbital launch from a U.S. rocket company, and in fact, Rocket Lab just noted that their 50th launch of an Electron rocket is coming up later this month, I believe on the 19th, if my memory serves. Yes, on June 19th in New Zealand. So still waiting on a liftoff time for that mission. So it could be on the 18th, technically, for us here in the States. We'll have to wait and see what their planned launch time is. But this also marked the 115th orbital launch globally. There have been 3 launch failures, well, 2 launch failures and 1 partial mishap, bringing us to our pie chart here. U.S. rocket companies still representing 60% of the pie. China with 30 launches on the year, including 1 liftoff from the moon, collecting some lunar samples, sending it up to its orbit around the moon, and soon it will be coming back to Earth. It's got about a 2-week long period before it comes back for a return to Earth. And folks, that will do it for our live coverage of the Starlink 10-1 mission. We once again certainly appreciate all of you who have been sticking with us right down to the very end. We know you have choices on where to find your live launch coverage for all of these missions, and we very much appreciate you being here with us tonight. Want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the show, as well as for holding down the fort with tracking work tonight. Thanks to our wonderful moderators, Stephanie B., Callistia Lee, Astro Jen, Astro Joe, and Rusty Shackelford, for all that you do to help us moderating the live chat. It's not easy some nights or some launches, and we very much appreciate you keeping things kosher and allowing for us to have a wonderful and welcoming community full of folks that are longtime space aficionados and those just coming to see their very first mission. And we'll go ahead and end things with one final super chat in a perfect way to end this broadcast. This coming from Amy Werba with a super chat of $8 in memory of Bill Anders of Apollo 8. For those who were not with us for the early part of our broadcast, today brought the unfortunate news and confirmation that Bill Anders did pass away at the age of 90, doing what he loved while flying a plane near his home in Washington. Of course, one of the 3 members of the Apollo 8 mission, Bill Anders, happened to be the one who captured this iconic photo named Earthrise that inspired so many around the Earth to look to the skies and dream of the future. So it is with that we offer a sincere thanks to Bill Anders. Our thoughts are with his friends and family and all from NASA and its contractors who worked with Mr. Anders and knew him during his long and illustrious career. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, we want to thank you for being with us on this evening. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, treat folks with kindness, and we will see you next time, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.